and they're going to have the Cloak and Daggers Terror Cape line up to make sure that that final judgment is dealing even more damage.
Lots of sort of breakdown. I do find it interesting, actually, looking at the bans that went over to Schmungus. Loki is not a part of them. They went for the Invisible Woman. Is that a little bit like a... It's no point really going there for Desley because there's not as many good ultimates to copy. Like, what do you think of the thought process?
The terror capes, as we can have a look at Schmungus' POV. They're anticipating that Venom, they're anticipating that Silo, playing underneath in the small room to make it harder for Saint Moto to actually find the engagement that he's looking for. And it means currently that we're in a 5v5 situation, but with Pinecone already down for LowNine, they're missing a substantial amount of sustain.
Giving them a taste of their own medicine by Saint Moto running a Venom right into Schmungus, and why Andrew especially. Desley was the one to go down first, and the point is still just trickling over for LowNine. The progression is pretty good for Schmungus. The eliminations are going back their way. A disengage, not losing too many bodies, whilst Schmungus have actually built up
out him quickly. Otherwise, Kragi gets a free Galactic Legend before Wolver's got the ultimate to absorb it.
Jerky is sat on the Dance of the Butterflies, just got it online, wanted to just wait out some of these defensive ultimates that are coming in. Meteor M actually from Wolver, looking to try and find the right target, in the right position, but a little bit of cover, just keeping Schmungus alive for the time being. KG managing to take out Jerky just before the ultimate might have been potentially used. Means that this is not a bad fight for Schmungus. The contest is still there from LowNine, but whittled down. Craggy was the one that started that fight with the Galactic Legend. He's 50% having another one.
Yeah, and LowNine didn't have access to any of the Abyss. Feasts on air.
Regeneration domain, just keeping everybody alive, and it's just a battle of getting these support ultimates online. Wolver, though, with the Dance of the Butterflies as support, able to cut through. This should be LowNine able to take the point, but Schmungus have done a really good job of putting this all the way to 99%, saving onto these ultimates and just trying to disengage, making sure the Crisis doesn't get too much value. He does have his ultimate already for the final judgment.
So the Galactic Legend ultimate comes on for Kroggy's looking for any person a little bit isolated, but Wolver is immediately there. That's getting all absorbed forces. The regen domain as well coming on through from Desley as Boca Shield was not in position, and Crisis is able to take the Stylo down. Bass Descent comes on through. Necros tries to find the hero moment, takes Gonski down, which means no Eternal Bomb to block at the Punisher.
Got two. The Eye of Agamotto there from Boga. It's just the attention that's been split over on this objective. LowNine fighting back. They were up against Craggy's Galactic Legend, and Meteor M just buying a little bit of space, but Necros just finding people in the shadows in these little corridors to find the picks. And whilst everybody's attention, one thing you can say about Schmungus is these players as a core have played together quite some time now.
Yeah, LowNine are going to be mixing things up entirely. Crisis actually sacrifices the final judgment entirely to swap over to the Winter Soldier, which is a clear...
For the time being, but Eternal Bond is going to be the initiation, forcing out that Invisible Woman ult.
Yeah, and they had Terror Cape, which meant that they were still taking vulnerability, even through the Invis boundary. 165 heals per second is nothing for the target focus that Schmungus are able to output.
Just trying to find a little bit of a gap, whilst the diver's gone in from Saint Moto, jumping in onto multiple people with the tendrils. It might be a bit of a struggle to disengage safely here, as the swing doesn't quite go where you want. At least you're able to get a little bit more resilience there. But the Psionic Seduction pulling him all the way back in. Boga with the Maelstrom, catching out onto Crisis first, who has he used an ultimate at all this domination game? It feels like he's not had a great opportunity. Wolver, these Meteor M's not quite catching, consistently missing, and Schmungus, much like the first point, wailing out the storm and holding on to the objective as long as they possibly can.
Desley has finally been taken down. The problem is that Necros, just the pressure of the Panther, gets the Vibranium Spear onto the Cloak and Dagger and forces out the Eternal Bond, as Gonski just needs to use the dash to create distance between themselves and the duelist. LowNine will be able to find the flip. Boga has the Eye of Agamotto to punch through all of that healing. It's going to be up to Crisis. He needs to be the hero. This Bionic Hook needs to be able to take the Strange down before that ultimate comes through. That is the force physics. This is why you took the Invis Woman
to actually make this a 6 versus 5 for the time being. Boga just trying to break down these shields. You mentioned the Eye of Agamotto up on the high ground. Can he sort of get the attention taken away from him for a second and jump into the back line? I mean, the Kraken Impact might be the thing that helps. He's only connected onto Jurek. Doesn't quite have their ultimate, and through all of the sort of healing that's coming through, nobody from LowNine quite going down yet. Craggy going to be re-inviting himself back into the fight. And why Andrew's been able to find so much over on this Emma Frost.
Yeah, the force physics connected onto the Eye of Agamotto, but KG had the Eternal Bond, which is the better sustain for Schmungus. Off the Psylocke has not been able to find anything so far. LowNine need to find much more value, and it's going to start right now. The counter dive is able to connect. Necros goes down to the Winter Soldier, and Gonski is going to utilize the Eternal Bond just to buy Wolver that opportunity as Terra Kick comes through. Feast of the Abyss almost takes Craggy down off of the back of it, and he will fall afterwards.
Moto finding the opening with a Feast of the Abyss. And now it's if you can sort of keep resetting. Schmungus
is going to have the lead in terms of strategist advantage, given the fact that, yeah, reset after reset, you said it, and you got it right on one. Winter Soldier, cracking impact comes on through, and that means that Desley's copies are actually making it harder for Schmungus to sustain. Down to the butterflies comes out from Jerky, not to be able to find the picks, but because his health bar went low, he needs the intangibility. We move over to the point. Eternal Bond from KG paves the way for Schmungus to be able to set on up into that space. They catch Pineclone on the disengage. Slowly but surely, LowNine are bleeding players that they can't afford to lose. Crisis comes back on the Strange, tries to come in through with the teleporter, but what's he buying time for? It has to be a Feast of the Abyss, but Saint Murderous is being drained of health bar. Schmungus managing to focus via this Venom. They haven't been able to find the pick, but they have been able to chase him out. He's back in 4%. Feast of the Abyss comes on through, doesn't find anything. No, Schmungus scatter away while Andrew grabs Pineclone to make sure that there's no follow-up, no potential sustain from the Venom, and Schmungus take burn in 2-0.
How strong that ability is, but also when we did see the low-key copy the Cloak and Dagger, what I really liked is that they didn't just instantly use the ultimate, they used the full duration of it. And it's not just copying an ultimate that Loki's ultimate is, you copied their whole kit, which means that you do get another Terra Cape, so you do have a lot more like opportunities to put that extra damage in on the opponent. But it's really gets more the Loki to copy what they're expecting would be a Cloak and Dagger on the other side.
Counter dive. Loki is really strong here for counter dive, plus the fact that you're going to have regeneration domain, which is a cooldown, but the value that it brings to the table might as well be a force. It's going to be a force physics to deny the feral grab coming on out, as it's going to be Eternal Bond from KG. This is one of the strengths that Schmungus has. No one's gone down to the poke pressure that LowNine's able to put, which means that KG has been able to channel all of it into sustainability, the Cloak and Dagger charge, and LowNine lose the Strange.
And there's the final judgment from Crisis, trying to find a little bit of space. He needs a little bit more support of his team, and he's got the backing of them. And finally, he finds it opening onto Boga.
Yeah, Invis Boundary not going to be able to come through in time to save the Doctor Strange. Supernova combined with a Mega Hurricane, and Schmungus's Invis Boundary is not going to be able to keep healing through that one. That's another reason why LowNine wanted to combine both of these players, but Schmungus have that Strange. Boga fell early in the fight, so he will be able to instantly set up another teleport coming on through. Necros lunges directly out, trying to find a grab. Last Stand is going to be in play. Gonski went for the copy of Invis Boundary. Can they find anything? The grab potentially to get one of these players outside of it, but Necros with the XP turns onto the Bucky, or rather the Punisher fully instead, to make sure that Crisis goes down. There is no firepower in LowNine's composition, lacking that Punisher.
Schmungus in the last map, but it didn't matter all too much in the end, as Schmungus have been able to take it. Eye of Agamotto just skirting across the sky, not being able to see or catch anything, and the eliminations going well into the direction of L9. Craggy's been really good at these sort of redemption arc fights, but even he can only hold off for a little bit longer. It's taken just over 3 minutes for L9 to get to the point of this map, but they keep things moving, most importantly.
Yeah, and they've already pushed so far ahead. Securing all of the space for the Flyers is absolutely putting pressure, but making sure that they're not within LOS of the Punisher, and that is a huge pick. Pyro Prison denying the space, adding that damage take on to Schmungus' players.
Good work that Schmungus did on the defense might be all for naught if they let this second objective flake through this quickly. There's the Fire Tornado coming through, and everybody's stuck in this corridor. What else can you do other than just burn them down? The final judgment's going to be used from Craggy, all of that trash damage leading towards a big ultimate, and most importantly, whilst it's not leading to eliminations just yet, it has split these attackers. It means that this is not going to be a clean disengage. It's going to be more ult charge as the Rage of Ultron's going to be used from Necros, and more time wasted from Schmungus on this defense.
This is smart from Schmungus. This is to have the firepower, the stance to be able to push Craggy back, as finally LowNine will be able to move forward. The ultimate comes on through. Final judgment. Schmungus Schmungus try to double shield off their disengage. They fall back into the small rooms, and they do manage to disengage without losing a single player, but LowNine want more. If his boundary gets invested, Kaiji answers the back with a turtle bomb that goes too aggressive, and he goes down.
Boga, he's got the Eye of Agamotto with these invisible boundaries. There's a lot of little ways that you could just slip in and catch people out. It's going to be used. It gets 4 onto L9. There's the final judgment as well. That's the combination that L9 were really not wanting to go up against. Schmungus have done so well to just deal with all of this offensive damage that's coming in from L9, whether it's just holding back the S key to disengage.
Way more of their space. Firestorm is going to come into the mix. Rage of Ultron paired up with Psionic Seduction, but the Storm has already been able to combine with the Torch. However, all of the picks are on Schmungus' side. The regen domain coming on through. Kragi out of the way entirely. Up on that high ground push, untouchable. Inside the Dagger Dome coming on out, and LowNine have been able to get their way onto the payload, but it feels like it's just temporary space.
He does have some help, but he actually gets Saitamato as he's about to ultimate. The shotgun's enough. And this is going to be a rough contest. You've got the supports coming in from Schmungus to hold this one down, but because the last person that went in was Saitamato, there's no Paul on the other side. Schmungus.
The way that you aim with Loki, you don't aim directly at them, you aim for their feet.
There's a little bit of a swap over as Craggy's gone for something a little bit more boots on the ground, to say the very least. Wolver finding his first pick, which has been delayed often so far in this first part of the map, but eventually things are starting to look pretty good for LowNine. The elimination started to follow, but Craggy is always very good at turning what looks like a 4 versus 6 into a 1 versus 6 in favor of Craggy almost.
They've got Final Judgment and Eternal Bond in this next fight. LowNine going to be stuck inside the invis boundary from Deadly coming on through. It traps everybody. If you try and pass out of it, you get slowed and you get melted by the Final Judgment that Kragi is going to be able to use to bypass LowNine's invis ultimate entirely. Crisis tries to find the hero moment. Gonski with the God of Mischief tries to pocket it with the regen domain. They have, with that Ultron Shield too, been able to find the space to get the picks. LowNine by the skin of their teeth, and a Final Judgment from Crisis come through with a very fast
turn. To build some of that rage, but he also wants to keep that HP bar up as much as possible. Desley going down. Wolf has been very good at finding these first eliminations in the fight, and the last stand not really connecting onto much, forcing out some ultimates. Even the Eye of Agamotto from Boga just missing, thrown across the sky yet again, and the Final Judgment from Craggy wanted to try and come out, but the Loki copy in Invisible Boundary is a great counter from LowNine.
Yeah, Schmungus tried to double stack again. Psionic Seduction and Final Judgments make everyone from LowNine vulnerable, but they managed to just force the EMEA out before turning onto that Punisher.
Stolen.
The Garut Walls too, to be able to get the late stagger pick onto this EMEA. There's no part of the map for Andrew to try and fall off of to regroup with the team faster. 53 seconds left. Schmungus have one good
damage with the walls, but a Strangled Prison on the horizon is something that Schmungus need to be careful about. Invisible Boundary, more aggressive it has to be. It has to be on the objective, but it does mean that there are players in the back line that want to try and jump into the Invisible Boundary to survive. Just as the Strangled Prison's about to come in, the Rage of Ultron cutting through alongside the Final Judgment means that Crisis should be getting a hold of this one. It's going to be really hard for Schmungus to be able to re-engage onto this. There's not going to be a portal play. Boga is the last to go down on the point, and Crisis, giving Craggy a taste of his own money, is going to bring us to a third map.
What a play from LowNine. Strangling Prison and at the same time overlapped with Rage of Ultron and Final Judgment. They creep with the Final Judgment, quite literally shredding down all of those players from Schmungus stuck inside that Groot ultimate. We said that it needed to be long stalled out fights coming on through.
Used to playing. It might also mean if Rixichu's going to lock in the Ultron, that Craggy is freed up to play the likes of Punisher as well.
Yeah, Craggy can play either the Punisher, potentially the Star-Lord. Maybe we get to see the Scarlet Witch Dark Sorcery team up come through. Schmungus have liked to run that composition on Symbiotic Surface, as we can have a look to see what LowNine on their defense is going to be opting for. What other thing that Rixichu can potentially come on through is play hit contest if they want to use it though. Invis Boundary is up for Desley. Whether or not they'll get the space to do it, I'm not sure. Jerky gets frozen. Unfortunately, doesn't manage to find the pick. However, Saint Murder comes on through through. If the Peeler's final judgment with that Loki regeneration domain comes out off of the point though, Ryan, everyone from Schmungus just decided, okay, we've got Invis Boundary. You might find the pick spirit, but we've got the point.
It's the royal wave of Schmungus are just walking away on this. But still, you're going to be maybe a bit frustrated if things trucked on the way that they did.
True, Supernova comes out before Andrew can get Psionic Seduction to make the Flyer have a little bit more problems staying up in that sky. And that Supernova has been able to clear the high ground entirely. LowNine really wants to get Crisis into the bird's eye view to try and put more pressure onto Rixie on this Star-Lord. They even contributed the regen domain to keep him up there. Freedom Charge comes out, gets grabbed immediately by the Carbon Crush coming in through from Andrew. KG comes on through with the fate of both worlds. Wolver tries to put a stop to the momentum that Schmungus were looking to secure. The Eye of Agamotto coming on out from his end. And off of the back of that, Crisis and Jerky, the crossfire coming on through between the Torch and the Punisher, catch the disengaging players from Schmungus and make up a little bit of time, but they have to make sure that they're able to disengage cleanly too.
Ooh, that gets all of them.
Legend gets so many, but they've still managed to got the Invis Boundary to heal for the most part.
Craggy caught so many of them with the last stand, and the invisible boundary, I think, was only on Pink Clone that wasn't caught. So this counter-attack that's coming from Crisis, a real savior here. A nice fight for LowNine, but that's one to definitely watch back. That seemed that Craggy was able to find...
Keeping up the pressure on the Strange, but he doesn't have the confidence to use it. Pine Clone, can we find the Force Physics? No, but we've got the regeneration domain. The copies have to be broken before the Maelstrom can come on through. They haven't been able to find the pick, as Jerky's been able to shut down the space that Schmungus were looking to secure. Supernova splits the team, and even though the Pillars made some little process, it's going to be all for naught, it feels, as they're again staggering out Andrew on this Emma. The Strange is utilizing the shield to make sure that no one takes a little bit too much damage. Crisis backs out, has the final judgment. Schmungus have to be aware of it. The regeneration domain so the Punisher can get more aggressive. Wolver manages to make sure that he avoids the Force Physics by clipping his body into the wall above it, and Freedom Charge and Final Judgment come through with the Punisher trying to cut off the disengage, and Schmungus have no space to run. They've got their backs against the corner. They answer back with a Final Judgment pocketed by a Luna of their own, but the heal isn't enough. LowNine find the break point. Kragi falls mid-ultimate, and LowNine is still holding strong.
Oh, the Supernova is in the most uncomfortable of places, and whilst you said that everything was just holding on, there was the thing that broke the camel's back.
Rixie is even over to the Ultron, still going to have a lot of duelist potential, but also sustain. Final Judgment comes through from Crisis yet again, kept safe by the regeneration domain from his Loki. Gonski even was able to find the God of Mischief to copy the Invis Boundary. Crisis is able to use the shotgun to avoid the silence coming on through from the Psionic Seduction. Pineclow's got his own actual Invis Boundary, and Schmungus are out of ultimates. They're out of bodies. They're going to be out of time as well, as LowNine managed to slam the door on Schmungus's approach. Point B halfway through, barely.
Showdown. It'd have to be a hell of a one to win out here.
They need to be able to find a pick onto Jerky or Crisis, because these two duelists getting to stay alive at the same time is a situation that Schmungus just can't deal with. Taking that chunk damage coming on through from the Pyro Prison. Oh no. Wolver sets up the counter portal. Does he manage?
Well,
Catchboger's been able to find 4 people off the map before.
Yeah.
From the side of LowNine falls for it.
We're able to get through, and the play is one that we've actually seen from L9 before over on
says they feel the confidence to go for an aggressive play. Out comes Regeneration Domain. Moves forward to take
bodies on the point, just trying to hold things down. Rage of Ultron is going to be the opening ultimate for this fight. This defensive side, it feels like. And really, it's just LowNine holding things out. They're not too concerned about it, just waiting out the storm to an extent, as they're not too far away from having that invisible boundary and the combination of a Loki ultimate. Final Judgment for Crisis going to be the thing that starts off this attack.
Yeah, they weren't able to stop LowNine from building up those ultimates, nor was Rage of Ultron able to give them the space to build something to counterplay the Final Judgment. Not when Gonski was able to get the copy onto the Lunar Snow. Fate of both worlds, 40% damage boost to every single shot coming on through from that Punisher's side, and Schmungus crumble They're going to try and make a play for this high ground hold, but Jerky already on top of it. Same to be said with Saint Tomoto, just disrupting Schmungus' forces, trying to give them reason to burn an ultimate before we go into where the fight actually matters on the payload.
Ooh, Galactic Legend, the sort of dashes have had to go back in a negative direction, but Saint Tomoto's the first one that's going to go down. Pink Lord, I think, did have the invisible boundary throughout the whole of the beginning of that ultimate from the Star-Lord, just choosing to use it now, play it down, but still able to hold on, and actually they are getting this objective moving along, just passing about 60 meters. Psionic Seduction going to be coming in and pulling in LowNine into these fights, and it's a good reset from Schmungus, but with just under 4 minutes to hold on to, there has to be more fights like that.
He has been able to find the poke damage to build up the final judgment. We're headed to final fight territory. Out comes the God of Mischief. On both ends, we've got a Luna dancing, but it's a damage boost for Crisis, and the final judgment might be the final play LowNine needs to unlock for a symbiotic surface. Schmungus are falling. Invis boundary is the thing that they're forced to take cover, and Force Physics comes out from Deadly, just trying to delay a potential regroup, but it's not to be. And LowNine managed to see the
Schmungus were able to pick up. But once we moved over to the different objectives, it felt there like Schmungus, yeah, they were having some really good fights on the defense, but that final point was taken with still like 3 minutes left on the clock. It would have had to be an absurd hold from Schmungus to make that one a lot closer on the line.